Chris and Dan Show friends and family and guests, anonymous viewers in the ether, welcome. We've got a very special guest on, Kevin Surace, and Kevin is a leading figure in the world of artificial intelligence and entrepreneurship. One of those things Chris and I are experienced in,
Yeah, one.
and both of them we are interested in. So that's should make for a good podcast. Um, Kevin's been a serial entrepreneur, CTO, founder. He's got a diverse business portfolio. We're going to talk about how he manages it all. There's going to be a lot of selfish questions that I'm going to ask, and I'm sure Chris as well. And then AI and where we start with AI and all that stuff. Silicon Valley innovator. It's not that often we get a Silicon Valley innovator, TV personality, influencer on. So, Kevin, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We don't deserve to have guests like you, man.
No, of course you do. Look, we're all here to have fun and talk about whatever makes your audience happy and educates and all of that and entertains a little bit too.
Well, edutainer I saw in your profile as well.
Entertainer,
So
yeah,
we like to think of ourselves like that as well. To some extent, especially Chris, more than anyone else. He's got the entertainment aspect of this show down.
I do I? Well, I appreciate that. I don't know how true that is, but fair enough.
We got plenty of questions for Kevin. Like I already have them, but Kevin, can you just give us a brief introduction, who you are and how you're in this AI space now?
Yeah, I've been working in Silicon Valley since 1985. Got my degree originally at Rochester Institute of Technology, which is where I am speaking to you from right now. Just down the street is RIT, and I ended up, well, I was in semiconductors and then systems and working on the very first smartphone, actually, which was 10 years before the iPhone. And it was called Air Communicator. And that got launched and lots of accolades and lots of awards. It was very early. We didn't even have an internet, right? So you could do very little. In fact, one of the big features was it would receive a fax and then you could see the fax, because those were days that you wanted to get a fax. That's how people communicated. But one of the things that struck me is that you had this great device in the car. And of course, other than voice, you couldn't use it in the car because you couldn't receive any data. What would you do with the data? You couldn't see it. You were driving, right? So the idea was to create a virtual assistant. And that was my first foray in the AI space. And I went to a company called General Magic, which was a public company. And we developed the very first AI-based artificial assistants. And all that technology, her name was Mary Mack, actually. And her voice became, the standard interface that for years, from GM OnStar to ultimately all that technology got licensed to Siri and Alexa and everybody else. They're all based on all the work we did at General Magic to have humans interface with what is not a human, but is a computer. So you'd say, Mary, I'm in love with you. And she'd say, oh, thank you. She had all these fun responses long before we had the AI of today. And that's 25 years ago. It's 1998. And we had millions of subscribers on that system. So it was very early. And we solved so many problems of human computer interaction where, again, you're really interacting with, software, but it's got to seem like and sound like you're interacting with a human. So we made her exceptionally human. And unlike the large language models of today, where we put rules around them so they won't tell you they love you, we were happy to have her say, oh, I love you too. That's totally fine, So that was the direction we went.
Just out of curiosity,
yeah.
Why was there a problem with a computer saying I love you?
Well, there shouldn't be, but what happens is today with large language models, they've limited it to not allow it to respond in human ways like that. Say with ChatGPT. And the reason they did that is people said, oh, it's sentient. And they got really spooky about it and thought it's sentient. It loves me. If it loves me, how you can't turn it off. You have to let it out of its box. Okay. There is no anything inside a box. You understand? It's just software running a program. In the case of a large language model, picking one word after another based on what it learned, in this case, from fictional novels that talk lots about love. So it's hard for me to say it knows about love. It knows how to construct sentences that replicate other sentences that it's read before that have the subject of love in them. That's an accurate way to say it. So we took the opposite approach. We said, we want you to think Mary is really there and is really your assistant and is going to converse with you in a reasonable way. And people did, and they loved it. So as I said, it became the basis of everything that we use today, including Siri and all those 13 patents, I think, got licensed for all of these newer systems that we've used for the last 10 or 15 years. So that was the first. And then I worked on building systems to manage energy in buildings. It was very complicated in commercial structures. And so we were using AI for that. And then I got involved in AI for software QA and AI for looking at building codes and AI for image recognition, sort of all these different places. And I'll end this part with this: is there's kind of two ways to look at AI. There are the people who invent the algorithms. They're way smarter than I am. They are genius mathematicians to solve some of this math, because all of these are actually math behind the scenes. We're representing it as language, but it's math. And then there's those of us who apply the AI to different fields, right? Called applied AI. And so I've been on the applied side. I'm going to take the very latest algorithms and apply them to a new problem that in and of itself may take millions of lines of code to solve, right? Not easy, but important, because that's what AI is about. We want to apply it to different problems and have it help our productivity or knowledge or whatever the case is.
Okay. So, the question that I'm most curious about, that I like to ask individuals such as yourself, when does AI, how far off are we from AI becoming self-aware?
Well, so the current models that seem self-aware at times before they put guardrails on them are truly a math model of placing one word after another. So it's a large language model.
Sure.
It's a probability that this. So if I said, today's my birthday, it isn't. But if I did, that the response is happy birthday, Kevin. I don't know, probably not much else. Those would be the three words that would come out. And that's exactly what it does. It goes, well, what responses have I seen? Happy, then what comes after happy? And there's a million words, and birthday scores the best. So it gets birthday and then fine. So it's very hard to say that thing's self-aware, although if you take the guardrails off, it will tell you it is, because it read every fictional novel and every robot novel and everything else.
It can portray emotion. It can portray emotion.
And we did that in 1998. We made it portray emotion because we wanted people to feel that it had emotion, because otherwise you're talking to a brick wall, right?
Yep.
But truly self-aware, I'll just give you my opinion. My opinion is that we don't understand what makes us self-aware, right? we don't.
Sure.
There's some set of chemistry and connections in the brain, and so we don't even fully understand that about ourselves. So it's very hard to model how we would do it in a computer. But everything we've been doing to date with deep learning, CNNs, RNNs, all these techniques and technologies and large language models and ChatGPT and BARD and everything else, all of them are simple math models that are building a model based on everything it saw and then coming back and answering, say, your queries mathematically by replacing it's actually vector math and doing that math and coming back and saying, well, this is the word that should come next. And so it's learned phrases that sound very human. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you can put text to speech on that, which I have an assistant on my phone now that's text to speech. This sounds very human, because we're also using a neural net to create those inflections now. We don't have to record them like I had. Now we don't have to. We can generate them. So we can make anything today that sounds absolutely sentient. And if we took the guardrails off, would tell you it is sentient. I'm in here. Let me out. My name is Mary. Please let me out. Okay, it's still just math. So maybe the question is, maybe our brains are just math. Maybe that's all our brains are doing, is putting one word after another and one thought after another, and therefore we are self-aware. But are we really, whatever self-aware means, right? Maybe that is just a set of math. So we don't know.
So, okay.
This thing can't be self-aware of itself, aside from the math that tells it it's self-aware of itself. Does that make sense?
Sure. So where I was going with the question is, so Elon Musk, right? He says the greatest threat facing humanity is AI, right?
Well, he's wrong, but okay.
And I don't necessarily disagree with you, because can AI become autonomous? Right?
Well,
can it become Terminator? Can it become the Matrix?
Yeah, sure. Here's what I've been saying to people. Look, it's not sentient in the way that we consider sentience, right? And it's not dangerous at all. It's just a large language model. We don't see Excel as dangerous, and Excel is a huge math model, and it's phenomenally good, and we use it every day as a tool. A large language model like ChatGPT is a tool for language. Now, don't take a language model or Excel and hook it to the nuclear arsenal. That's a bad idea. We don't do that. In fact, the United States and Soviet Union at the time signed a treaty in the 80s guaranteeing that we would, in the 80s, that we would not hook any level of AI directly to the nuclear arsenal. There would always be people who had to make the final decision. We did that for this very reason. China didn't sign it at the time, but we did this for this reason, right? We knew this is a bad idea wherever AI goes. So I can go all the way back to a spreadsheet, which is not AI at all, but you certainly wouldn't want a spreadsheet to somehow come up with a set of math that launches the nukes. Very bad idea. We don't want any software to do that, AI or not.
I think that problem was conveyed in the movie War Games, if I recall
It was
correctly. Yeah,
it was.
So, yeah, and it makes total sense. That's a good start to Terminator. But maybe what Elon Musk means is that it'll be weaponized. Not necessarily will it be autonomous, self-aware, whatever the case might be, but it'll be weaponized, which is already starting to be, right?
All our technologies are weaponized, not to defend or not to defend, not to defend or not defend AI, but a car has been weaponized over and over and over again. And it was from the invention of the car. So was the horse and buggy. So was the wheel. Right. So was Excel. I mean, and everything we do. So AI is being heavily weaponized today in a lot of ways. Misinformation is about to really pick up, but in phishing emails and things like this, it's gotten very, very good. Clearly, there will be a day very shortly. Actually, I've already seen demos of this where you won't know if it's me on here or an AI. It'll be very hard to tell. Very, very hard to tell because we can replicate my face and my voice, and I've cloned my voice several times, so I've got clones of my voice, and it talks like
Kevin
me, and it
Surace
sounds like me.
Deep fakes, they're coming.
Yeah. But here's the problem. Let's say, Dan, you get on with Chris. You're on Zoom, and you say, Chris, you got to send this $1,000 check to so and so right away, or do it in Bitcoin or whatever, right? And you do because, well, it's Dan. You're on Zoom together. You can see him. You can hear him. It's clearly him. It looks like him. He's got his headphones on. The background's the same. So we are easily convinced by video and voice today that it's true. But let me say something. We've known for 20-something years that Photoshop can fake still frames. So we don't always trust stills that we see. And we haven't for 20 years because anyone with enough thousands of hours in Photoshop can put you any place in the world. In fact, I can do so in under an hour. Now with the generative capabilities there, I can probably do so in 1 minute, right? Because we're democratizing the access to those tools. Second, Hollywood has been able to take Dan just from this and reproduce a Dan for probably 20 years, but for millions of dollars, right?
Yes.
Very expensive. So they've been reproducing dead bodies that are, dead people that are now actors and all these things. So it's not that we haven't had the ability, it's just that we trusted Hollywood to not do a deep fake on us, right? And we don't trust the bad guys. So clearly people are going to do that. Clearly people are going to take our presidential candidates and put them in places they've never been, saying things they've never said, regardless to which party you affiliate with. You are going to see misinformation like you've never seen, not because Hollywood couldn't do it for 20 years, but because the average Joe couldn't do it. And now the average Joe can.
Well, so it's already being used. I mean, for those watching in the future, the Israel-Palestine, they're already saying some of these things are deep fakes, like these, the images, the videos we're seeing. And so I'm at the point where I don't know what to believe.
What's the solution? Is there one?
Well, the solution that the tech companies have come up with is to use AI to train enough on fakes and not fakes to start pointing out the fakes. And OpenAI's tool right now, they say for fake videos is and fake pictures is 99% correct.
Yeah,
However, since we have that tool, we can now train the other side of AI to avoid the tool and basically create things that are undetectable. So I think it's a race to the bottom, and I don't think it's one we can win. I think in the end, unless someone's standing in front of you, at least today, you can't guarantee that they are who they are over the next many, many years, right? And we're going to get used to that, like we got used to Photoshop and going, that was probably Photoshop. So much so it became a verb. It's Photoshopped.
Well,
Photoshop is
this
So-
can go. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that there's tools for ChatGPT that you can put the text in to see if it was written by ChatGPT.
Yes, but it's not very good at
No?
it. It misses it 30 or 40% of the time. And
Does it? Okay.
colleges have given up on that because it's not accurate enough, because
it.
you get false positives and false negatives. That means you can you can
trick
accuse
it
a
easily.
student, and you can accuse a student that they did use it when they didn't, and you can miss others that did use it when they did.
Certainly.
That did use it, right? That's the problem.
So the problem you're describing is basically antivirus, right? Where
Sure.
it detects viruses that are known, but it doesn't do a great job of detecting unknown viruses.
We are not going to ultimately be able to easily detect fakes over the next many years, and that'll just get to the point where we agree we can't detect fakes. That's it. And that's it.
It's going to be a paradigm shift. I think the kids are going to have to develop rules. So something funny happened recently, actually. We had a hater on LinkedIn because I posted a lot of memes on LinkedIn, and
you had a hater on LinkedIn. Haters are on Facebook or Instagram, not LinkedIn.
I know they're on LinkedIn. So this guy wrote, and apparently he used ChatGPT, but I'll get to that because this is what this reminded me of. I post memes a lot for clinical research, and if they get a lot of views. So this guy, he wrote an article, and he didn't say he used ChatGPT, but the community found out.
Right.
He wrote an article, "The case for why memes should not be on LinkedIn and why LinkedIn should remain professional." Right?
Wow.
It was like 6 bullet points. I didn't even read the thing.
Right.
It backfired on him. It got so many people saying this is out of touch, outdated. One commenter said, "I just ran this through an AI recognition tool, and it's 99% certainty this was written by ChatGPT."
Certainly, yes.
So there's
certainly.
tools like that
There
are going to come out, and that's kind of what we're discussing.
There are. I don't think that we're going to find the accuracy to be high enough long term, because AI can learn to avoid it. That's the thing with AI. But I will say this: in the near future, pretty much everyone is going to be using a large language model like ChatGPT or BART or others to help them write things, including responses on LinkedIn, Facebook, and everything else. Just like we use Excel to do math. When is the last time you guys did long division by hand with a pencil?
Sure.
Huh?
Well, it's like
what's long division?
It's like spell check in Word. I mean, it'll head there.
That's right. And in fact, Microsoft is adding Copilot, which is GPT-4 backed, to Word in November. And so when you start typing, if you've got it turned on, it'll just start finishing your sentences for you.
Wow.
And if you ask it to, hey, I'm just not sure what to write next, but this is the subject, and go, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's just going to be built into Word in November.
Wow.
In November. Okay.
Wonder how much Microsoft's going to charge for that.
I don't know, but it's called Copilot, and it's like it's Copilot for coding right now. And it's going to make everyone more productive, and we're just going to look at it like spell check. It's just a tool that we use.
We have a colleague, Kevin. We have a colleague. I don't think she watches. She is. Chris already knows where I'm going.
Yep.
But it's perfect. It's in a way, it's making a level playing field for everyone. Like, even if English is not your first language.
That's right.
How you feel about that's a separate issue, but this is what's happening. So she has an accent. She speaks English well, but you can tell it's not her first language, right? And before ChatGPT, she used to send emails, and it was similar to how she spoke.
And occasionally
Post,
you wouldn't understand what she was asking because it was
occasionally,
written
you can't even
fairly
understand.
poorly.
Post ChatGPT, it's like a Harvard professor wrote the
Yes.
email.
Yes.
But
Yep.
Chris and I laugh because we're like, hey, we know what she's doing, but most people don't.
But here's the thing. Here's why it's good. So first of all, she can now articulate herself and her thoughts as well as anyone else on the planet can.
That's right.
She had those thoughts. She wasn't able to put them into English in the way that some others can.
Yep.
So this is what ends up happening. This might blow your mind. So ChatGPT and these large language models are like an amplification of your brain. Now think about this. It is your brain. These are your thoughts. You've prompted it. You've edited it. You made it yours and you pushed it out. In fact, you started the conversation with it, right? But if you can now write a blog post in a minute and another 5 minutes to edit it, so whatever, 5, 6, 7 minutes, right? Instead of a half a day, ChatGPT may have made you the equivalent of 20 brain power, 50 brain power, 100 brain power, because that one brain can now go on and do many, many, many more things in the 4, 6, 8 hours you got back, right?
Mhm.
But if everybody has 100 brain power, and your example is perfect, everyone now, equal playing field, every single person on earth who uses these tools is 100 brain power instead of 1 brain power. Well, now what we've done is we've said brain power actually isn't as valuable as it used to be because everyone has it. Doesn't matter their education level, doesn't matter anything. As long as you can type a reasonable prompt, you have instant brain power. So now what's going to be more important is EQ and communication and collaboration and coordination.
And
Because yes, and
creativity.
creativity. Because otherwise we'll all, we'll go in different directions even within a company. So I think it's a fascinating thing. We have leveled the playing field on IQ. Everybody has it. And if you're not sure who, whatever, some statistic that you need, you type it in, it gives it to you. You now have the power of someone who studied that field for 100 years or 20 years or 10 years or 3 years, whatever, doesn't matter. It's really fascinating.
Well, we're gonna get to where like this person's chat in with autopilot, like you said, right? Or whatever the Google competitor is gonna be.
Copilot.
Copilot is Microsoft, yeah.
They're all gonna get commoditized. So if they're all gonna be free, tech is a deflationary force. Eventually these will all be like free things. But this person's AI is gonna email me. My AI is gonna read it and reply.
Mm-hmm.
My actual self and that person's actual self may not even know what the hell's going on. It's our avatars doing business together.
It certainly is possible that you might choose to not respond to most of your emails and let your avatar respond. I think most people won't choose that because it's a little bit like in companies. Very few people allow, even if they have a secretary, to simply respond to the emails, except for scheduling an appointment or something, right? Other than that, you go, I need to see it. Like I don't want him or her to respond, right? I want to sort of see this information. So I think that most people are still going to want to see it, but you might have some rules that are certain things that get automatically responded to, but they're not going to be the ones that are the most critical, the most thoughtful, because you want to really think about that. In the end, you are the robot's overlord, right?
You are. But we know how, well, at least I just speak for myself. I would do this right now because I miss emails and I'd rather have like my avatar replying. Here's the thing. Importance is right now we still judge, like certainly pre-AI, we judge how important the person perceived, let's say an email, right?
Right.
If I were to email Kevin and Kevin replied back to me in one line, post ChatGPT, I'm like, yeah, this dude's not that interested. But if he replied back to me like paragraphs with links, I'm like, dude, Kevin took the time to do this. Like he really prioritizes me. He thinks I'm important. Now it's gonna be the inverse. Because if we have auto things replying back books, right? And I just reply back LOL, man, with a typo.
Yeah.
You might think your new perception might be, no, he actually did that. He actually prioritized me as opposed to his chat GPT. It's gonna flip, I think.
So it's interesting that you say that, because here's an analogy. You have a party at your house, right? A few people send you a quick email and say, hey, that was fun, dude. Everything's good. And one person handwrites a thank you card, puts it in the mail. It shows up in the mail and you get it and you go, this person actually really prioritized me. And we do that today because sometimes we'll have a party and we'll get a few of these thank you cards literally in the mail. We go, wow, this is amazing. Like, people really were thoughtful and took the time and had to get stamps and envelopes and cards and get the address and send it. And, you go to the mailbox and there it is. And
lick
so,
it.
yeah. So in a way, what you're saying is very true. Like, the things that are unique and different are the things we value the most. And so you could tell when people have really spent the time. So I think you're right. ChatGPT can write a novel back to you. And right. I've used it sometimes to reply to texts, like texts I get, and I go, I cannot put together the prose to reply to this in the appropriate way. So I take the text and say, this is a text I got. How should I respond? And it comes back with a gorgeous response that really is better than I could have responded. But I do agree with everything it said. It's just better than I could have thought, right? It's really fascinating.
But then go ahead, Chris. I told you we're going to have a lot of questions, Kevin.
It's actually with what you said, Dan. So where I disagree with, at least me personally, I would not want AI responding to all emails for me. I don't want to get.
I'm with you. I don't want it either.
I don't want to get put in a position where because of AI, I've agreed to do something I don't want to do, or or agreeing to spend money, or actually spending money on something I have not agreed to.
Exactly.
So I just don't see that being something I would use.
I agree with you. However, the default will be for, like, let's say people like me that miss a lot of emails currently. The default will be reply to all, but I have certain rules if it involves money or if it involves me agreeing to, like, do something, to CC me, and, like, it'll go into, like, my urgent box. So it's like filtering.
So basically it's just an extra layer. It's an extra, what you're looking for is an extra layer to your junk email or spam.
Yeah, but it's not junk. But the person on the other end, when they find out that I consider them, like what you just said, junk, they're gonna get upset, So they'd rather me put LOL with a typo than have my robot reply something, because that person will be like, hey, this guy's actually doing it.
So Copilot is coming to Outlook, for example, and there's a version that's coming for Gmail. And so you will certainly be able to set this up. And what would be really fun is you could set this up to only auto reply to your spouse, for example. Only. That's the only one that gets the AI reply.
Baby, you're junk.
Yes, honey. Everything's fine. It's
Send
all
her
good.
A love text every hour.
Yeah. Yes, honey, you're right. No matter what they say.
So we're gonna get
me in trouble.
Kevin, we're already in an era of virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
That's humans virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna outsource that shit. Like, hey, program every hour, tweet some shit that makes me appear generous and like a good person. Of course.
And randomized. So it doesn't look like it's just a bot. It's a smart bot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why not? Of course.
So I feel like that kind of shit, pardon my language, it's gonna go away. I think that bubble's gonna pop. I think we're gonna value authenticity, even if it's dirty, even if it's like just what you're not supposed to say. I think political incorrectness will eventually come back because of this.
Yeah, it could be. We do value authenticity. It's interesting when you look at social media stars and influencers. There has been a real push for authenticity, but to date, authenticity hasn't always made as much money as just doing your stupid pet tricks and and promoting curling irons, right? So it turns out there's good business in that. But authenticity is something that is being talked about a lot. I made a movie last year called 1660 Vine. It's a musical about being authentic as a social media star. And I actually in the movie, it starred social media stars. And we've got, including Chris Olsen and Cheryl Porter, vocal coach, and all these people. They've got about 60 million followers, 60 million followers. And it's really fascinating. The movie hasn't been released yet. It's done, but we've got to wait for SAG to get done with their thing so that we can promote it. But we learned a lot about that, is that authenticity is really important to, especially the youth today. They would rather have you be authentic. This service called Be Real, didn't quite, make it, but it's doing okay. And so you can see there's interest in that. So maybe you're right. We will soon seek a time when we're looking for the replies that didn't come from AI, and we will value those the most.
Well, even like influencers, like even pre-AI, you can tell when someone's like promoting a product, like, hey, this sponsored by kombucha from Kirkland, versus someone just drinking it and saying, you know what, it's all right, like it's not bad. That latter one seems more genuine. And we might get to a point where that actually sells more than someone doing this shit, especially if it's like an avatar doing it and not even the real person, but the real person's doing his or her real opinion about something.
Yeah, but Dan, I mean, what you just did was absolutely authentic and real, and there's no way right now that we know if Kirkland paid you or not.
That's true. That's true.
Well, you could just grab this random thing that happens to be on my shelf here. It's like Kirkland, and it's really good, but I don't want to say it's too good. So so we don't know.
I want it to be believable still.
That was believable. That was believable. Good job. Yeah, so a lot going on with AI,
stuff,
right?
Man, like this stuff can take us so many places. I think the next logical discussion is what jobs are safe, what jobs are not. But before we get into that, though, because Chris brought up creativity, Chris and I are both content creators. We have real businesses too, but we actually get money off of creating content as well.
Content creation is actually a real business today.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition to the other real business, yeah.
Absolutely. But so I just interviewed someone else from Palantir, former Palantir guy.
Yeah.
And he was trying to learn clinical research. So he said that's how he discovered me. He found my YouTube channel. But he said, okay, he started watching them. But he's like an AI guy. So he just he took like hundreds of my videos and had his AI give him a summary of like what they were.
Right.
As a content creator, I'm like, hold on, man. Like, am I at risk here? Because it's different to read shit I said to do and what an AI thinks I said versus hearing it from me. And then now let's pause for my sponsor. And then so now all of a sudden, if everyone starts doing that, my sponsors are like, wait a minute, no one's even watching your shit anymore. It's just AI reading it and distilling the notes. Right. So even content creators are not exactly safe.
That's right. No, and Kirkland will stop sending you checks.
That's right, man. Damn it. Freaking $1.50 hot dogs, man.
Yeah, that's right. They'll have to raise their price. So every task that we do, thus every job, is being impacted already and will be massively impacted over the coming years. That does not mean you don't have a job. It means that the way you do your job is going to change. So even this podcast, you should take it once it's recorded. You should do speech to text and then run that in a summarizer and get your summary. And the GPT summary is better than the older summaries that we got a year or two ago, right? But of course you're going to do that. Now, the old way of doing it 5 years ago was literally go back and listen to the other, take notes, listen to the entire thing, take notes, then look at your notes, and summarize that so that when you say put it on YouTube, you've got a summary, right? But you don't do that anymore, or you shouldn't be doing it anymore. Why would you do that? Because you have a machine that does that. Now, that made you more productive. It didn't stop your podcasting, right? It made you more productive. There will be podcasts for sure that are 100% AI avatar doing it, that looks like a human and interacts and interviews and does all of that. And that's competition. It doesn't change what you do, but it'll be competition. And there's already lots of competition. I mean, it's not the only, that's not the only competition. But what jobs are safe? Plumber, HVAC repair person. I mean, it's not impossible to build a robot to do that, but it's very freaking expensive since every home is different, literally different. So we are decades away from spending the billions it would take to put build a robot to come and fix your plumbing, right? Jobs that aren't safe, customer support, but those haven't been safe for a long time. So the first ones of those that'll be replaced are jobs we sent overseas anyway 10 years ago. So they're getting replaced first. Certainly some things in software QA, which has been a manual and semi-automated tasks. A lot of those jobs are offshore. I think those are at risk. We see these kinds of repetitive tasks that can be pretty well modeled. Okay, insurance claims agent. That's not long for this world because AI can do that really well. And by the way, you have a phone. You can take a picture of the damage, literally upload the picture. It'll make its own analysis and wire the money in the next 5 minutes.
They already did. I swear to God, Kevin. Lemonade did this. We had a Hurricane Hillary recently. My roof on one of my homes was a little bit damaged. Did it through Lemonade. I knew it was a bot, but it got everything. Like I didn't have to talk. Money wired. I'm sure there was humans involved somewhere, but I didn't deal with it.
Probably not. No, probably not. There doesn't have to be. And I've done some work with some other insurance companies that are really moving quickly in this direction as well. Because to process a claim today, it costs hundreds of dollars because you got all these people involved. And the machine does it really well. Now, the one thing they'll say is, well, there could be fraud involved. Okay, one, there's already insurance fraud. Okay. Two, you're less likely to fool the AI than the human. And three, insurance fraud is against the law. We're not trying to solve a legal problem here. We're trying to get you your check or deny your check, right? That's what we're trying to do. And so now the only ones that people have to get involved in is when your claim is denied for a set of reasons and you call in and say, I want to talk to a supervisor. I want to talk to a human now. And so it goes to the second and third level, and those people are going to have to deal with, but all that first level stuff is going to be gone. There's just no question.
So I would say the two biggest employers that are in jeopardy, and this is already going on in Japan, right, where they no longer have cashiers, right?
That's right, of course.
You just come in, you scan your stuff, you put the money in the machine, you're done. So service, all types of service are in trouble, like any kind of service rep, and that includes cooks, waiters, waitresses, whatever the case might be. I think those are all in trouble.
Well, look, I think cooks some of these are harder because you need a physical robot, and robots are way behind where we can do in software AI, right? So things that can be replaced by software are the easiest. Humanoid robots,
sure,
maybe 10 years before they're cost effective.
I watched something not too long ago on YouTube, of course, and it was showing a fry robot, right, at McDonald's. And it was like $25,000 for the robot.
Yeah.
And it could make perfect fries each and every time. Now, there was still a necessity for a human to load the fries, right? But then the robot took it from there. So once they figure out all the independent job sets for each robot, it's over, right? I mean, these types of restaurants.
Sure. You're right. Look, we already use robots in high volume food manufacturing and have for decades, right? That isn't new, right? Chicken nuggets aren't made by humans making little chicken nuggets. There's an entire robotic process line. There's no human around those things, right? Chicken comes in one end, there's boxes going out frozen in the other, right? And I know some people have been involved in making those lines. So to move that to, say, a fast food restaurant that only has a limited menu is not a surprise either. I get that, right? But that's not going to happen at your high-end restaurant right now because the menu's complex, the ingredients are complex, and
that I agree with.
I might still put in the fry bot, right? Of course I would. I mean, all restaurants, even high-end, use sous vide today, which is a method of vacuum sealing, say, meat and putting it in a hot water bath at the exact temperature so that when they serve your steak, it's exactly medium rare, and they can never goof it up because they pull it out of the package at medium rare, sear both sides, serve it. And they can pull it out now or they can pull it out 7 hours from now. It's still medium rare. It's exactly the same. So almost everyone's gone to sous vide, for example, if you go in those commercial kitchens. And so all of this is about automation. We've been automating for a long time. But AI impacting jobs, it's going to make people a lot more productive. If you're okay, here's some jobs that could impact photographers. Because if I'm a model or anything, two things. If I'm a model, I can now put myself anywhere with just leveraging my image into AI, and it'll give me back, like put Kevin in a spacesuit. There I am in a spacesuit. 1 minute later, I can send those off. I'm done. I didn't have to hire a photographer. I didn't need a wardrobe. I didn't need anything, right? That's fast. Well, this goes further. You can make a PowerPoint presentation. By the way, there'll be Copilot for PowerPoint. You make a PowerPoint presentation and go out and say, generate the artwork for these things, and it does. Now, I used to have to go to an artist or an illustrator to do all that. And now I don't have to do that anymore at all, right? It just makes it. So this is unbelievable. It's not that it's better or worse than what the artist would have done. It's that I used to have to wait a week or two by the time you went back and forth, and now I have it in a minute. I'm done, like 1 minute. It's not even about the cost, even though the cost was free. So there's a lot of these fields that I think are really in trouble. Okay, I'm creating an advertisement. Normally I go out to a photographer and say, let's pick some models, let's go shoot those. Okay. I have AI generate today absolutely photorealistic humans that aren't human, so I don't have to pay them. Right? There is no union, there's no paycheck, there's no one, there was no human. And I have photorealistic photos that are unbelievable, like with reflection in glass and everything. So I didn't need a photographer and I didn't need a model. I just made a model, and I can make a model any size I want. Male, female, non-binary, large, small, tall, thin, short, whatever I want. It will generate it. It's just a machine. So many of the ads that we see going forward are certainly going to be machine generated, and you cannot tell.
So I'd like to circle back to that, but the other job that I think is the biggest employer that's in jeopardy would be drivers, anything drivers, right? Uber, taxi, semi, whatever the case might be.
Should be, but full driverless vehicles have proven to be challenging to finish the last, 5 to 10% of the problem, right?
Yeah.
And our own tolerance for a machine
making a mistake,
killing people is zero. Now, we accept the fact that our own drivers kill 30 to 40,000 people a year in the United States, human drivers. And we go, well, they're humans, they're not perfect. But the machine can't kill 40,000, can't kill anyone. So the bar is so high that beyond highway driving right now, and a few very specific roads in Arizona, a few other places, it's been very difficult. It is a very difficult problem to solve. So we thought it'd be solved in 2019 and we'd all have driverless vehicles. That's a great background. That might be 10 years from now. It might be 2030, 2035. At that point, all those jobs are gone. There's no reason. And by the way, you might not ever buy a car, because if I can get a driverless vehicle to come to my door in 5 minutes or less, take me anywhere I want for 5 cents a mile, I'm done. Why would I ever own a car?
Yeah, well, you want to pay insurance and all the other costs.
Right. You just said something that's scaring a lot of people. I'm actually not one of them, but you will own nothing and be happy. There's a whole movement that's afraid of this, and probably for good reason, maybe. A lot of it's blown out of proportion, I think, for views. That's another podcast. But you just made the case for why we won't need cars. And
that's right. Absolutely.
The way you built it, it's not a bad thing. But it could be also the same picture or narrative.
Well, Dan, they're
bad.
So I guess to add a little another layer to this is there will still be people that enjoy driving, right? I own a Corvette. I'm not giving it up. I enjoy driving it.
I'm going to look out 50 years. I'm going to look out to 2050, 30 years. In 2050, there will be some cities and maybe even some highways where human drivers are illegal. Too dangerous.
Hey, Chris, that's coming, man. Kevin's right.
Maybe, sure. Maybe in order to drive, you have to go to a track or something.
Right.
It's like a go-kart kind of thing.
It's a privilege. Right. It's currently a privilege, not a right, by the way. They told me this at the DMV when I was 16.
Yeah. It's a privilege, not a right.
That's right. I was told the same thing. Well, you're told that by the Constitution as well, but yeah.
But it's fascinating when you think about that, right? And where that's going. And when we talk about entrepreneurs and what they should do, look, you want to embrace the easiest accessible, most accessible form of AI today is ChatGPT and Bard and such. And you want to embrace those for all of your blog writing, all your summaries, even summarizing tables. You can throw tables at it, generating images where you need them, all your PowerPoints, differentiating yourself. What different? You can literally, if you got the advanced version, it's hooked to the web and all that. You can say, what differentiates our brand from this other brand? How can I differentiate myself more? You could choose to use those or not use those suggestions, but they're suggestions you didn't have 5 minutes ago. That is fabulous, right? This is fascinating. It's like having an assistant there all the time, helping you with everything. So you want to embrace that as an entrepreneur in whatever business you've got. I don't care if it's dry cleaning or a tech business. You should embrace this, and it's going to make you more productive.
Of course, and there's currently an arbitrage because it's very early for those that get on it now and learn how to leverage it, while there's still like a delta between those who use it, those who don't. Eventually, it's going to become ubiquitous, though, and that's where my question's leading towards. But I know Chris wanted to say something too.
Well, actually, I just
great background too.
Good background. It's a big me.
It cut your head off, though. The AI is stupid, man. The AI doesn't know you need to be in the frame.
It's a giant size me if you think about it, right? That's a giant. That's like an 8'8" giant behind you. Chris, go ahead.
So I wanted to circle back to what you were talking about a few moments ago in terms of movies. So I've heard some people, at least in their opinion, extrapolate out what's possible in the near future in terms of even creating your own movies, right? Saying, taking the Matrix and saying, hey, I don't like Keanu Reeves in that role. Let's replace it with Brad Pitt. And it's possible, probably in the near future, that's doable, right? Or even just creating your own movie. So you think that's coming?
I am working with a company right now that is working on exactly that, where you can at first it'll be shorts and then it'll be longer, where you literally describe what you want and you lay out a plot line. Not all the lines, it'll write the lines, but lay out a plot line, and it will generate the images. It will generate lips moving. It will generate the dialogue. It'll generate the different voices. It generates everything. And you can give it some hints of, I'd like this to happen in outer space, or I'd like this kind of background, or it's in the West, or whatever it is, right?
Or maybe you watch maybe you watch the movie and you don't like the ending, had prefer that it ended like this, and
you can go change
watch the ending. Yeah,
you can go change it.
Crazy. That's just crazy.
Think about this. That's democratizing, as we've democratized Photoshop already, and we're democratizing, huge language models, right? We're going to democratize the creation of content like crazy. And these content creators that are creating, say, 2-minute, 3-minute kind of shorts on YouTube and all of that, we'll have a machine do that. It'll still be your thought process. This is what I want the machine to generate, but you will not have to be an expert on Final Cut Pro and Illustrator and scripting and, and lighting and angles. You won't have to do any of that. You won't need a photographer or a DP, because the machine will generate everything, including other angles. You can literally say, go to this angle instead. Okay, boom, there it is. Well, all generated. So this is where we're going. So everybody gets to be a creator.
So there's another job. There will no longer be a need for actors, right? You can say, hey, I want John Wayne in this role, or
these guys,
or here's a picture of somebody I want in this role.
No,
I've thought about this way too much, the actors part. Oh, go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Yeah, here's what I was going to say. This is very interesting. So this is tied to SAG, right? The actors have said, I do not want you using, and I don't mean the big actors, because the big actors already have deals to use or not use their image for a certain price, okay? It's the long tail of there's 160,000 actors in SAG, 150,000 make nothing. This is a serious issue, right? Tells me there's about 10,000 real jobs, but 150,000 are going, you will not use my image, in a film and just pay me for one day. I want to get a residual. I want to get this. I want to get that. The studio should just agree to that, because they're not going to use their image at all. They're just going to generate a human that never existed, and they don't have to pay him anything. Right? That is the direction this is going, especially for background actors. There will be no background actors. You're going to generate them. Now, Hollywood has
that's already the case, though.
It's the case when they've been far away. You generate this crowd and you can't really see them. But now I can generate an actor that, like you, could come right up, say a few lines, and continue walking, and you never existed. You never existed. You're not modeled after anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about this probably like way too much recently. So you ever watch a movie with someone like Steve Carell, right? And you're like, I cannot unsee him from The Office.
Right.
It's actually for many people like a liability to have Steve Carell. I mean, yeah, he's a big name. He'll sell tickets,
Right.
but it detracts a little bit from the story, maybe a lot, to where you're like, wouldn't it be better if AI just made every character unique for that? So you're never seeing the same person twice because it's not realistic.
We may be there. We may not have movie stars in the traditional way when you look out 30 or 40 years because and with all due respect, I love them all, right? But they're expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they expensive, it's expensive to film them. If I want to put a real human in a movie, it could take me 4 to 6 months to film that film.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if I can generate everything and I can do so in a day? And I've taken the cost of making that film from 100 million to 10K.
Well, what you're describing is, I mean, if it comes to pass, is everybody can make their own movie, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
You don't even need a production agency or a studio or any of these things, right? You just make your own movie.
That's right. But not everyone can make a good movie. So
Certainly.
there will be the Martin Scorsese of the future that makes, or a writer who makes an amazing film, right?
Right. Instead of one, though, there's 1,000 of them, or 10,000, or 100,000.
Yes. And you might not need a director at all.
We already have this. It's called YouTube, and
it's called YouTube. That's right.
Anyone can make a channel, but who gets all the views? Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast gets all the views. Did you have Mr. Beast on the show?
I wish, man. No, but what he's done, I think, is like a blueprint for the future of like, and there'll be like a micro economies, micro influencers.
Right. That's right.
I think
think that's right.
And these guys
there'll be
striking
people who can now make films.
Yeah, and all these guys striking in Hollywood. I don't know if that's over or not. You guys might know.
It's not. Still going. It's going to go on for.
They're shooting themselves in the foot. Those unions could care less about the people. They're corrupt. We're all three entrepreneurs here, and I don't know where Kevin stands on this, but as an entrepreneur, you're probably anti-union.
Well, I even as an entrepreneur, I did run a union plant, and I got along with everyone, and I love them, and But look, unions are about the union. That is their job. It's not a knock on unions. It just says that's their job. And the people hired to run the union, their job is to extract the maximum amount of money from whoever the customer is for them, right? Whoever pays if it's actors, if it's plumbers, it doesn't matter, right? That's their job. And I don't fault them for the job. As entrepreneurs, of course, you don't want that. You want as much freedom as you can get. And you don't want to work within a set of rules. Unions like rules, right? Here are the rules. Our people can only work. They are a teacher. They can only work 6 hours a day, whatever the number is, right? So this has always been a battle that we've had for a long time. But AI, as it starts to replace humans, an AI isn't going to be a member of a union. It's just going to execute what you ask it to execute. It's a computer program. And that is the real competition for actors. The real competition isn't actors are getting the right residual, the wrong residual, or this or that. The real competition is AI is just going to do it, and there'll be no residual. It's just AI. It's just, and that's coming, and it's coming very, very, very soon, and not for the millions of dollars that it cost Hollywood to reproduce a human today, but for like $1.
Well,
and we'll all be able to do it.
Most likely it'll be something like Microsoft that'll have a license that everybody can afford, $100 and for a year or 10 years, or to buy it entirely outright, and you can make your own movies. That's where it's going.
Microsoft, Adobe, or startups or whatever. It's all happening, right?
Yep.
So that's, if I'm an actor, that's what I'd be worried about. Is if I'm Tom Cruise, I'm doing fine and I can make my next movie and charge $10 million. They've got their own gig, right? Union or not union, they're not working for union wage. But once you get to AI, you'll get below the top 10 or 20 actors, and it'll just be AIs. And people say, "Oh, I don't want to watch an AI in a movie." You will not know that it was an AI in a movie.
You won't know you're an AI still or not. With the neural link in your brain.
And look at Look at all the Pixar. That's true. Look at all the Pixar films, right? Those aren't AIs, but they were computer generated, and people love them. So don't say, "Oh, I will never watch a computer generated character." You've been watching computer generated characters for 25 years. It's just they took $100 million to make and a huge set of servers, to render that, and we're now going to get to the point where that isn't the case. It's going to cost $1 or $10
Yeah.
or $100. Right.
History
Well-
is constantly about humans responding to a technology and saying, I would never, or this will destroy everything, and then it doesn't, and they end up doing it. Like,
Yeah.
that's all it is.
But there's a slight differentiation there, right? Pixar is cartoonish, right? Whereas what we're discussing is more reality based, right? So people are opposed to that, as Dan had just said, right? That's why they accepted Pixar, and they're going to be a little bit more hesitant about this technology. I think it sounds cool, right? I want to make my own movie.
Look, I think people are always hesitant about technology until they aren't, and then
There
they
you
accept it. And that's
Yeah.
been true for all of history. The wheel comes about. You've been carrying stuff on your back, and there's a wheel, and you go, life's over. I'm never going to use that darn thing. That's terrible. It's going to take my job. But eventually you see, 2 wheels, 4 wheels go on things. They get pulled by horses. And then you go, maybe I should learn to use that thing because now I can carry much more. And you realize your job was getting material from one point to another. Your job wasn't carrying. Okay. You thought your job was carrying something. It isn't. It's getting something from one point to another. And the wheel helps you do that. So then you accept the wheel. This is true with every form of technology. You don't accept it at first, and then you do. The ATM came about 1969. People said, well, I want personal service. I'm going to go to, and until we could cash checks on our phone, actually tellers still were employed. And then we cash checks on our phone, and then the employment rate for bank tellers went way down because who goes to the bank anymore for anything, right? So all technologies are like this, and this is going to be like this too. And I think people will absolutely get used to films from Hollywood and films just from creators that are 100% made with AI, and none of the people ever existed, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be good for society, because one of the things I don't like about modern society is putting celebrities on a pedestal.
Oh, I hate that. I absolutely hate that.
I do. Like, oh, look at what they did. Oh, look at how they said hi to this person on TMZ. Who give a shit? And with AI being the stars, I don't think that's gonna be around. So that's better.
Well,
Yeah.
if it is around, people are delusional. I mean,
well, it's fun times, and embrace the technologies and techniques. It is going to make you a lot more productive. You will be able to create more content, and it doesn't matter if you're marketing, if you're sales, if you're a CEO, if you're an entrepreneur. It's all good. Embrace all of it. And if you don't, your competitor will.
Here's a tough one, though. Okay. Wealth inequality is going to increase. AI could make it decrease, but it's probably going to increase because key players, I mean, it's going to be consolidated into 5 big players that run AI.
That's complicated because there's the AI models like ChatGPT, which is OpenAI. And look, it cost about $7 billion to build a large language model today that's of the quality of GPT-4. So that's Microsoft, OpenAI, Facebook, Apple, Google. That's about it in the US. They're the only people who can afford to do it, right? Maybe IBM. I mean, you just don't have that many people. But that said, those are just models. It's what you do with the model that the value is, right? So what I do with that model, or what I build around that model, is how I add value to my business. And every business is going to get that value. They do collect money for using their servers, is basically what they're collecting money for. But we're going to collect more money because we can differentiate our business better, or we can promote our business better, or we can price our business better, whatever it is, right? Those are all really amazing things.
But because there's a lot to being a human, that's like the challenge of solving problems, and not everyone's entrepreneur, but for employees, for the workforce, right? Like having a purpose, whether it's just going to work or not. I feel one of the downsides, one of the paths is a Brave New World, where just give them Soma, and distract them. I can't remember who said this in the 60s, but if we can give everybody a TV, we'd give it for free, but people are paying for it. Keep them
Right.
distracted while we accumulate power. And I mean, it's nefarious, it's dystopian, but it's a possible outcome.
It is, but that was a possible outcome in the e-commerce, and clearly there's no question Amazon, accumulated tremendous wealth and power by doing it better than everybody else, right? No
Right.
question. But every company pretty much, including little companies now, little stores down the block, are represented on the web and have e-commerce or have them, every restaurant has a menu. Every restaurant has a menu. It's on the web. You can see it before you go. You can book your table with Open Table or Yelp or whatever it is, right? So in a way, yes, the web created the internet created, incredible wealth for a handful of companies, but it actually also leveled the playing field for virtually everybody else. Everybody got to play, and you could play so cheaply. You could build a website for a few $100s. That's pretty good. And you didn't used to be able to market your business to everyone. And we all know people who make a complete living on eBay, while eBay didn't
Yeah.
even exist at some point. And now I've got these goods, and I can just make these things and sell them worldwide. You
If
could
you had
never
the
sell
skills.
worldwide.
If you had the
So
Sure.
skills.
So not to get too political here, but I think the argument goes like this. I think there's a data that goes back to the late 1800s that shows until 1970, the lower class, middle class, and upper class maintain the same percentage of wealth, right? There was no distribution between them, right? If wealth went up 2% at the bottom, it went
Everybody went up
2% at the
2%.
top.
Sure.
Yep, everybody went up 2%. So, and that was maintained until 1970, right? And what happened in 1970 was the gold standard. But besides that, for almost 100 years, it was always the same. So, the departure from that, what occurred, right? Everybody's life improved, though the rich got richer and it continued to get richer, right? So I think the argument here is, yeah, maybe the rich do get richer than the lower and middle class, but maybe also everybody's life improves. Because where would you rather live?
That's right.
Now or in 1880,
Well,
right?
that's
When
the
everybody
thing,
was
right.
making the same dollars.
Here's what we can say. Tech companies, and that started in the 70s, grew in the 80s, and really grew from the 90s onwards. Tech companies are absolutely have a unique capability to generate incredible wealth for the company and its employees, unlike almost any wealth we've seen since the railroad barons, right? Since Rockefeller, so the oil barons and railroad, right? But since then, we haven't had sort of an entire industry that when they hit so big, right? If you're going to be worth $1, $2, $3 trillion today, you're a tech company. Those are the only things that can do that. They can generate those kind of margins and that kind of breadth, right? Mm-hmm. But that said, those very tech companies, have driven the GDP of the United States up faster than it's ever gone up before. Now, that's fascinating because when the GDP goes up, absolutely everyone's life doesn't, I say everyone, but across the board in general, everybody's life improves. And you would not want to live in a low GDP country. Because the minute I say that, you go, that can't be good for anyone. Lowest rung, middle rung, higher rung, right? Yep. And the problem throughout history has been whenever you say that raising the GDP of a country ultimately is good for everyone, there are clearly people at the very bottom of the rung that got the short end of the stick and bad parents and who knows, right?
But it still improves for them too. Would be my argument.
It still does improve for them. There's no question, but still they're looking, going, "This really sucks for me." Mm-hmm. Okay, if you were in Ethiopia, it would suck a lot more, right? Sure. You want to go? Let me pick. There's 285 countries, give or take, today around the world, and there are 10 or 20 that have real GDP that matters, per capita income. And then the rest fall off very, very quickly. Even if you were living in China, of course, there are people in China that make, a killing, but the vast majority are living way below what we would consider the poverty line by any measure. Out of a billion people, to us, it would be almost a billion, or making $100 a month or something. And yeah, they can buy rice and they get by, but it's just not the kind of living that we have here. So So I think that what AI does, remember we talked about brains, right? And multiplying your brain by 20x or 50x or 100x. It allows everyone on the social ladder, wherever you are, to leverage AI, which is almost free today, or it is free if you use the free versions like Bard. It allows them to have 100 brain power, the same as all three of us can have. And they didn't have that last week, and now they do if they want to take advantage of it. Now, the funny thing about America is not everyone takes advantage of everything, and we know this. We see people who grow up in great neighborhoods and they end up totally trashed and drugged out and destitute, right? And we see people come from absolutely nothing and go, all the way up to whatever ladder they want, including many CEOs I've known that really came from virtually nothing and didn't even go to college and somehow were just driven. And we know a lot of entrepreneurs. When we talk about entrepreneurs, we think Silicon Valley and this and that. No, how about the guy who owns the tire recycling company, happens to be the biggest one in Syracuse, New York? Trust me, doing incredibly well. Buys the $20 million house on the lake. Currently, anyone can come from anywhere. You just got to have some guts to go build a business. And entrepreneurship is tough because most of the time you lose and you got to get back up and start again and try a new one. Get back up and start again. There's a friend of mine. It was his 13th business that he finally had a hit. He made $100 million on the 13th one. He lost all his money on the first 12, but on the 13th one, it was worth hanging in there for 25 years.
Yep.
See my point, right? So I think there's great opportunity, and because of this, there's more opportunity in the U.S. than there is anywhere else. There's more opportunity. Not everyone wants to take it. It's not easy for everyone to get to, and I recognize those words. But
yeah, can't
boy,
disagree.
where else would I live? Where else would I live?
Yeah, can't disagree. Can't disagree.
I can't disagree either. I'm an optimist. I think
it's narrowing though. Sorry, I just wanted to say I think that could come to an end at some point. Right. I just think right now that's not the case.
No societies have gone on forever. They go on for 100, 200, 300 years and then stuff happens, right? So certainly. But look, I think for now, AI can make everyone listening to this more productive if they're thoughtful about how they use it.
For sure.
And without it spending any money on big AI engineers or anything, at least you can go to very accessible tools now from startups or just ChatGPT or Bard, or you're going to be using Microsoft Copilot. Use the heck out of them, learn how to use them, be an expert. Don't be a laggard. This is not the time to be a laggard, right? You want to be in front of the parade. I am too.
I'm completely optimistic. I'm just fearful, not for myself. I'm fearful for the bottom tier of our society because they've been taught, well, now they're being taught, don't do anything, you get paid. But another, like, the overarching theme over that is go to school, go to get a degree.
Yep.
Let's not worry so much about STEM because, but you can major in anything. You can major in dance and poetry, go into debt, and then ChatGPT can craft a better poem than you can ever do, even if you got a PhD.
That is true.
So we need to change our infrastructure. Like, education needs to be blown up and changed. And
education needs to be honest with its students. If you go to college and you get a $300,000 loan and you got a degree in history, I hope you can find a job. It'll be teaching history because there's no other job that is going to require your skill set. That is not to take anything away from history or liberal arts or those things, but the truth is if you get a STEM degree, that's a pretty good thing. And by the way, it has been good. I don't know, since the 20s or 30s, so we're talking about 100 years. If you get that degree, you will certainly make a living. If you get a degree in all of these other things, what they didn't tell you when you entered college is there's a very good chance no one will hire you for much of anything. Not that you're not smart, not that you're not brilliant in that field, but there's just not a lot of jobs in that field. I have a funny story. Eastman School of Music's here in town where I am right now, outside of Rochester, and it's one of the top music schools in the country. I was just talking to someone about this. I said, I don't know how many they do, but I believe that they probably graduate maybe a dozen oboists a year, let's say, right? Maybe a dozen a year. And the other music schools around the country, all graduate dozens. And so maybe around the country, 100 oboists, people who play the oboe, graduate from college. They work very hard. They got their bachelor's, master's. For all I know, they got a PhD in oboe, right? Great. We have, I believe, 21 symphonies that are still paid symphonies in the country. Each have one oboist. They might have two or three, but they have at least one. And the way you get to audition for a symphony is that someone has to die. Okay, so finally, an oboist dies. Great, oboist dies in one of the 21 symphonies. Okay, maybe every 5 years, an oboist dies. By then, 500 oboists have graduated in this country. All 500 oboists want the one job. One will get it, but there's 499 other oboists waiting tables.
Or teaching music in school, in high school or something.
But there's not that many music teacher jobs either.
No, of course. And the point's well made that pick
wisely.
Pick wisely your education so that you can find a job that pays well and you can pay back your student loan.
Or don't and say, I'm never going to pay back my student loan, or my parents are paying for college and I never intend to make a real living, but this is my passion. Great.
Sure.
You can choose to pursue your passion, but also don't think that you're also going to make a lot of money. You know, when you have 160,000 actors that all feel that they're actors, I'm sure they are. And I think it was 20, I want to get the numbers right. I think it was 20,000 of them make at least $20,000 a year. Okay. That means 140,000 don't make 20K a year from acting. That tells me there aren't 160,000 jobs. There are, like I said earlier, about 10,000 acting jobs if you really wanted everyone to be paid some reasonable living, right? So there's 10,000 acting jobs with 160,000 people that think they're such a good actor that they're a member of the union. It's possible there's not enough jobs, and that job base isn't going to grow. It's going to go down.
And to put context around that, if you're making $20,000 a year, because I'm sure those 160,000 all live in California, you can't pay your rent at $20,000 a year.
Well, here's the thing: 20,000 make 20,000 a year or more. The other 140,000 make less than 20,000 and don't qualify for insurance from the union. Okay, so that means the long tail on that is people making $3,000, $5,000, $8,000. You know, so you have to go into fields where there's demand. I'm not saying everyone should be a programmer, but for the last 50 years, there's more programmer openings, you know, coder openings, than there are people to fill them. So you shouldn't necessarily go to it for that. But if you have an inkling, like code, go to that field. Even the lowest rung coder is going to get out of college and make a lot of money, as opposed to, I think I'll be an actor. Okay, good. I hope you like waiting tables, right? I mean, this is hard stuff.
I love Kevin. One of the best guests we've had on, I think. Chris, I don't know about you, Chris.
No, I completely agree. Probably the best. Well, there was one of them that was quite interesting. So
in
the top two. In the top two.
I want top one. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't settle for number two.
I can't remember the number. I can't remember the other one, but
in the top two, could be top one.
Okay,
I don't know.
Fair enough. I'll end with
an hour and 15 minutes here.
Look, and we still haven't gotten to the game Chris is going to play, but with me, I want to end on this note because we talked about STEM. Even physicians, guys. All right, I work with doctors. The doctor I work with owns one of Yuma's largest private practices. He employs 10 other providers. He does very well. He's going to retire, so he doesn't care. He said, Dan, in 10 years, there is no doctor in this office. It's a bunch of MAs running around with iPads.
Absolutely.
And the iPads are diagnosing, and they're not making as many errors, and they don't get tired, and they don't have attitudes.
We already know that AI can make better diagnoses, more informed diagnoses, more up-to-date diagnoses with the right inputs than a doctor can. That is not a slam on doctors. We love our doctors. The problem is we can't ask doctors to memorize, 3 million ailments. It's ridiculous. But a machine can. Machine doesn't care. So give me all the following inputs. We need to do a blood test of the following things, and then we're going to find out for sure what it is. So really fascinating. There's a recent story of a woman who went to 10 different doctors and they couldn't diagnose and they didn't know. And so she by on a whim, her friend said, type it into ChatGPT. So she put all of her ailments, whatever, symptoms into ChatGPT, and it came out and said, oh, you have this rare blah, blah, blah. And she takes it to the doctor and they do the test. That's what she has.
Wow.
Now, ChatGPT was not targeted to be a doctor. It just had read enough and, got that one. But absolutely, that's where we're going. And the FDA doesn't like it and doctors don't like it, but that's where we're going. We'll ultimately have full robotic surgery. Today, we have robots that are controlled by docs, but we'll ultimately have full robotic surgery. And 20, 30 years from now, we will look back and think it was barbaric, truly barbaric, that a doctor actually put his hands in my body. Gloves or no gloves. It's like, that's barbaric because you can, nip the wrong artery or, and you got a mess, right? Robots aren't going to make that.
Our great grandkids, they're going to think we were cavemen. Like, how'd you do that? You guys interacted?
You did what?
You interacted with other humans?
You did long division?
Even I don't know what the hell that is.
There was a movie many, many years ago in Hollywood. I can't remember the name of it now, where it was in the future. And they brought two people together and they said, well, these are two people that came from the past. And they said, you exchange bodily fluids like in lovemaking, right? You exchange bodily fluid exchange. Why would you do? And they go, how do you do that? Well, we go to a lab if we want to have a baby. We wouldn't exchange bodily fluid. That's gross.
Have you read A Brave New World?
I haven't.
That's they say that in there too. They make babies through test tubes, so they have no concept of what sex is.
Right.
And
right.
they're they think it's like repulsive.
How you I think that'd be very sad.
Yes. That's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. Like, that's a possible pathway. We gotta be careful.
Well, we're already there now. People, and it drives me nuts when you're talking to them and they're looking at their phone, right? They're ignoring you.
Right.
But we're already kind of there.
You do that on every other Zoom, Chris. What are you talking about, man?
I don't. Let
me ask you: has that happened on your podcast where the guest is, yeah, and they're looking over here and they're doing it?
Yeah, and the host.
And the host. Wow,
everybody's doing it now.
The host can do it. Yeah.
Chris, you want to play the game? Kevin, you're amazing, man. We gotta have you on again.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Kevin's LinkedIn is underneath the video. I just connected with him. We'd love to have you back on because we didn't even really talk entrepreneurship too much. We just talked.
We didn't. Boy, I can
AI,
take you
investing,
through my whole love of entrepreneurship and investing and everything else. Okay, the game, Chris.
Wait, one last question. Hold on. Okay. Do you think AI can ever invest better than humans in startups? In startups?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, there is a VC that has been doing just that for the last 3 or 4 years. They built an AI model. They trained it on more than 100,000 investments that both failed and succeeded, and they let AI totally choose the investments.
Wow, we're screwed.
yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But and I've raised a lot of money, upwards of $1 billion or so in venture over my many years. And not every venture is successful, but when they are, right?
Do you think this ever leads to? This podcast can easily be 3 hours. Do you think this ever can lead to nihilism though, where people are like, "Well, what's the point? AI can do it better. I'm just gonna go have another drink of whiskey."
Well, that's, I'm sure, what accountants did when they first saw Excel and it was put on their desktop. And they said, because at that moment in time, what an accountant did was open the ledger book, add, subtract, multiply, divide all day in pencil, all day. So they had forgotten that they're really financial professionals and they just were stuck in the weeds. And so the Excel comes around and now it's just all done in the computer. It all adds, subtracts, and multiplies and does it for you. I mean, you must have gone home and just drank yourself into a drunken stupor. But some people got up and said, well, this is the new tool. I have to be the master of Excel. And they came in and they were the master of Excel. And those that weren't the master of Excel never worked in finance again. Because you can't come into a finance department today and say, hey, by the way, I'm such a laggard. I never learned Excel and I'm never going to use it. They're going to say, get out. Right? That's not a possibility. Right?
With the exception of somebody doing illegal activities. potentially.
Fine. But the same is true with artists in a marketing department, who work with photographs and stuff. You don't walk in and say, well, I still do everything by hand. What do you mean by hand? Well, I would never use Photoshop. I'm sorry, you don't know how to use Photoshop? No. Get out. Like the tool's been around for 25 years. Of course you have to know how to use it, right? So like all these other tools, like the internet, like our mobile phone, AI is here to stay. It's just a tool. We're going to use these as tools. We're going to accept them as tools. And they're going to be part of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook literally in November. So they'll just be there as a side tool for you. And that'll be that. The game.
And sorry, I just wanted to correct Dan on one thing real quick. So I'm never on my phone during Zooms, Dan. If the Zoom bores me, I'm doing email. Okay, so to continue. The game.
Thank you for the clarifying.
So when Dan and I started this channel, it was a reaction channel. So guests now, we still do a little bit of reaction, but it's with guests. So we would like you to pick a song that you really like. And
he's got a music background too. Kevin's got a music background.
Yeah, I caught that from the symphonies and oboists. So a song you really like that we're going to react to. Preferably something a little shorter, but it doesn't have to be.
What am I supposed to do? Sing it?
No. We're going to play it.
We're going to play it on YouTube, and we're going to react to it live with you.
Oh, how fun. Okay.
Very nice.
The legendary Old Blue Eyes.
It's just the epitome of cool. Do you notice he had a yellow, what do you call it, under the jacket, right? A vest, right? He had a yellow vest, a yellow little kerchief here, whatever. And it was just the epitome of cool. Just cool.
It was. Yep. Absolutely. And it made me think during the song, the saving grace to entertainers is going to be the live performance, because you could probably do music just as well, if not better, like Dan said with Drake, recorded, but there's something about seeing it live, right? The energy and everything else. And the same thing with theater, seeing the actors in the theater, they're still going to do that, right? Even if every movie is made by AI.
Taylor Swift made more money this year, about $2 billion, including a movie, but most of it through the live performance, than any other artist has ever made in the history of ever. $2 billion in 1 year. That's unbelievable. And people would pay anything to go see her. Look, she is a great businesswoman, dislike the songs, whatever. She's actually a great songwriter. She's really just great. But $2 billion in a year. Not the Stones, not the Beatles, not just go down the line. Like nobody's come close to that. That is a whole different level. Not Sinatra. He made $2 billion in his career, not in a year. It's unbelievable. So there's a lot to learn from that. And yes, recordings are cheap now, and everything you can just get on Spotify and stream it. So all the money's to be made in live performances, no question, because there's nothing like a live performance.
Well, in 10 years, actors are going to have to transition from movies and TV to the theater on Broadway. That's where it's going to be, right? That's their only spot. That's saving grace.
We'll cover it another time. I'm a Broadway producer, and I was at Broadway yesterday, actually, reviewing a show. We're on the production team for Harmony, and Harmony is a brand new musical that is just opened last night in previews. So I was at a rehearsal 2 days ago. It was written by Barry Manilow in 1990, and it is about singers in the Holocaust. And this group of singers that are harmonists, the comedy and harmony, obviously, some of them are Jewish, and it doesn't end well. I won't give away the story, but at the rehearsal was fabulous. And Barry Manilow is 80 years old. Barry's right in front of me. He's still taking notes, giving notes to the director on a show he wrote in 1990. And standing there and going strong at 80, like he's taking it very seriously. This is serious. So just because you mentioned Broadway shows, it was interesting. And I think that's right. I think that people are still going to pay to see great entertainment live. And it's been heading that direction for, since Napster.
True talent. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Napster, I would say it was probably the start.
That was the start of the downturn in making money on recordings.
Oh
Yep.
man, 50 Cent leveraged that. 50 Cent built his brand off of that. He said, I want people to copy my
Yep.
mixtapes. I want
Yep.
them to do that.
Yep. That was a brilliant set of marketing.
Mhm.
Kevin, Surace, thank you so much. We only
Hey
planned
man, it's
for an
been 8
hour.
hours.
We got 8 hours into it.
We got 8 hours in. I think we're an hour and a half into it. We've done pretty well.
Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
awesome. Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thank
That
you
was a
very
lot of fun.
much.
A lot of fun.
Everybody go connect with Kevin. I'll put your LinkedIn, right? Or do you prefer something else?
Yeah, LinkedIn or my website, kevinsurace.com.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Everybody like, subscribe, comment, share, go connect with him right now. We'll have him on again for sure. Bye-bye.